good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to our webinar today. Thank you for joining us. Today we'll be discussing securing the smart home, how telcos can turn routers into growth platforms. My name is Marina Koicheva. I'm a research director here at STL Partners. And we have some great speakers today. So hopefully you find today's session really enjoyable and interesting. Before we go to the agenda, let me just do a little bit of housekeeping rules. You are all in listen-only mode, but if you experience any technical problems, please type in your question in the questions part of the interface you're seeing, and somebody from our technical team will support you. We also would encourage you to put your questions throughout the presentation in the questions part of the interface. We'll have a lot of time for discussion at the end, and we hope to include questions from the audience. We will be sending a recording and the slides after the webinar, and so you don't need to take screen grabs. You'll have the material, and you're very welcome to share it with your colleagues. Now, let me introduce the speakers today. So from STL Partners, we have Harini Dharmaraja and Gabia Chepornaite, colleagues from our consulting team. They will present some of our recent research in the area of smart home and security. And then we are really pleased to be joined today by Razvan Todor, who is a Vice President, Strategic Partnerships and Alliances at Bitdefender, a global cybersecurity company working in the area of smart home, amongst other things. Razvan will share the view of his company about the opportunity for telcos in connected homes and cybersecurity. And then we'll have a discussion. I will be joined for that discussion by Razvan, but also by Gianluca De Maria, who is a Senior Product Manager, Digital Products and Services, including cybersecurity at CK Innovation Opportunities Development. So you'll have the opportunity to hear the point of view of the cybersecurity company as well as a multinational telco. So it should be a great discussion. So without further ado, I'll now hand over to my colleague Gabi and Harini, and they will walk you through some of our recent research.
Great, thanks for the introduction, Marina. So just before we maybe get into the presentation, I'd like to sort of introduce the session and give you some, I guess, background into the research that we did. And so what we did was we spoke to a few senior executives and decision makers across the consumer space in leading telcos, specifically across North America and Europe. And the aim of these discussions was essentially to get a holistic view on some of the key consumer trends, the state of play, understand sort of key use cases and applications, particularly in relation to smart home and cybersecurity, the delivery mechanisms for these offerings, and their ability to monetize these offerings, so in line with consumers' willingness to pay, but also get a sense of how telcos are framing their value proposition and driving differentiation, especially as the market becomes more saturated and it starts to sort of stagnate. Just on the next slide. So our research, revealed that it is pretty common to the telco industry that growth in, I guess, what you could frame as traditional consumer services has slowed, and for many it's sort of fallen off their agenda in terms of revenue generating opportunities, especially when it's sort of stacked up against other developments in the B2B space, but also the likes of newer technologies like AI, which has sort of surfaced and taken priority. But if you sort of dive deeper into the realm of consumer offerings, what we find from our research is that smart home and cybersecurity in particular offers telcos a fresh area for differentiation and value. And this is particularly key for two key reasons. The first, as you can see on the left-hand side, the average home now has more than 25 connected devices, from the likes of cameras and sensors to everyday devices like TVs, laptops, and handsets. And as the number of connected devices grows, so does the number of points of attack or the surface area for vulnerabilities. And with that, we expect I guess, cyber risks to sort of scale accordingly. And a common misconception which we heard from a number of our discussions was that many consumers to date still believe that most end devices which have embedded security believe that those devices, if they're secured, that alone is sufficient. But often what they lack is sort of the understanding that by each of those devices being connected to a single network in the home, bad actors have access to all those devices which are connected to that network. And so that's one sort of clear avenue and clear reason for which telcos are able to, embed network level security, connecting and securing all those devices and IoT modules through that single network in the home. Another reason sort of driving this opportunity is the growth in FWA deployments. And as you can see by the graph on the right-hand side, mobile operators can play an even bigger role in protecting the smart home. Typically before, telcos owned fiber deployments and they had hardware on site, so on premise, in particular the router. And with the expansion of fixed wireless access, that has grown more prevalent and has given telcos a more unique opportunity using the router as a central gateway into the home to provide that visibility and control to those connected devices. If you just skip on one more slide. So expanding on this opportunity, and in particular the idea around router-based control, the reasons for which the router can be seen as a trusted platform for layering smart home services and I guess a pathway for telcos to enter this market. The first is centralized and secure control. So using the router as a single point of access, as a central gateway for those connected devices, and using it as an ideal point to monitor and manage the home network. Giving that network level visibility, as we've discussed, regardless of who the OEM is or what operating system the devices are used and managed through, network level visibility gives access to essentially see all those devices and access and get visibility into how those devices are being managed. And of course, it's continuous and scalable. So as the number of sort of endpoints or end devices increases, you can kind of scale that threat detection, the content filtering, the automation, and manage that more centrally without installing software specific to that individual device. And on the right-hand side, the other opportunity is that users are already familiar with this ideology of having router-based within the home, and it's already embedded. And so, customers are already aware of how the hardware works. They don't really need to set it up. And that kind of reduces the barriers to entry by not needing to install additional hardware. The other is simplified experience, so giving users that single interface without having to manage disparate apps or platforms, individual to each device, and telcos already have that existing customer relationship. So they already manage the billing, they provide that service support and the underlying connectivity to the home. And so telcos are well positioned as a natural provider to, I guess, play in the space and win in this space and really offer what is more secure and more integrated to protect each of those devices.
Okay, so I guess it's clear that telcos do have a role to play in smart home cybersecurity, but the question remains, how to best enter the space. And I guess across the interviews that Harini talked about, it became really clear that telcos are approaching the market from two different starting points, and each of them is kind of shaped mostly by their existing capabilities and brand positioning. So in the first strategy, telcos are starting with smart home security services. So for example, cameras, IoT sensors, or parental controls. And then they're adding the layer of cybersecurity as a complementary layer. And this model kind of tends to align with telcos that already have strong consumer brands and have established channels to sell smart home solutions through. And in this scenario, cybersecurity is positioned as a value enhancing add-on. So it's not the primary driver, but rather something that can be layered onto an existing proposition to increase that customer stickiness or boost ARPU. However, some of the interviewees in our program noted that with this model, they can sometimes struggle to unlock more meaningful revenue from cybersecurity because it is added later, it may be harder to convince customers that it warrants standalone investment. Therefore, you need a very clear strategy on why you're doing this. The second strategy kind of flips this model. So here, telcos are starting with cybersecurity as the entry point. And this is more typical of operators with strong cybersecurity credentials and those that invested in the cybersecurity partnerships early on. And from there, then these telcos expand into the smart home offering. And smart home becomes as that value added feature once the core protection layer is in place. And this model specifically enables telcos to kind of establish themselves as trusted security providers first, which allows them to expand into adjacent categories later on. And I guess the bottom line here is, both of these strategies are valid, and we see, operators finding success in both of these directions. However, each of these requires a very clear go-to-market strategy that considers their internal strengths, the customer trust, and the partnership ecosystem. So telcos must be very intentional about where they start and how they structure the product, the marketing, and kind of the pricing to support them on this journey. So once telcos have defined, their strategic entry point, the next critical question is, how do they price and package these services in a way that balances uptake with long-term monetization? And we found that telcos are currently exploring three main pricing models. So the first pricing model is bundle pricing, and bundling remains one of the most common strategies. And here, smart home cybersecurity is kind of packaged with broadband, with other smart home offerings, or just other services. And that happens at either no visible cost or with a small incremental fee. And the main benefit of that is the increased adoption, because bundling usually tends to drive higher take-up and ARPU, and that is particularly true in the markets where price sensitivity is quite high. But on the other hand, bundling also carries the risk of commoditization, because usually when customers perceive cyber as just kind of part of the package, then they may not fully value or engage with it. And basically, as one operator put it, customers want reassurance, not complexity, and they're more likely to accept cyber when it's bundled, but less likely to kind of pay attention to what it actually does. So that simplicity is key, and that's why bundle pricing is one of the most prominent models. However, some telcos are actually taking the opposite approach and positioning smart home cybersecurity as kind of a premium service with dedicated pricing and a very clear value proposition around, protection, privacy, and all the peace of mind things. And the benefits here are very clear. It protects the margins and positions the telco as a trusted provider. But the challenge, again, is also very clear. Without the right positioning, adoption may lag, because customers must truly believe in that added value, or they won't convert and they wouldn't pay for the cybersecurity in this instance. And one of the innovation leaders told us that when we frame smart home cybersecurity like an insurance product, so protecting your family, your kids, your data, then people understand why it's worth paying for. So basically, to execute premium pricing well, there is possibility to get strong payoff, but basically you need to have clear vision and clear framing as to why that service is premium. And finally, some telcos are exploring freemium models where basic protection like site blocking or router level filtering is offered to all users, with upsell opportunities then for some more advanced features. And this model specifically can help build trust and engagement by making cybersecurity a bit more accessible. But it's a very delicate balancing act, because freemium does encourage usage, but that high engagement doesn't always translate into revenue. So that conversion to premium must be very well designed and frictionless for customers to actually do that. So the message here is that basically pricing can shape product engagement and brand perception. So operators really must tailor their approach based on their customer base and maturity in cybersecurity and basically their strengths. Now, looking at the future, there are opportunities for telcos to go beyond smart home cybersecurity to build long-term strategic advantage. And this brings us to the smart hub. So in many markets, telcos already control the router or the gateway device in the home, as Harini mentioned. And that physical and digital presence gives them a unique ability to deliver more than just connectivity. And the router can evolve into a smart hub, which is a central orchestrator for cybersecurity, for device management, automation, and analytics. And there are several strategic benefits to offering a smart hub. So first of all, by offering smart hubs, telcos can build long-term value. So by embedding intelligence and services into the hub, telcos can drive ongoing utility, which then increases stickiness and deepens that customer relationship so that security and control kind of become part of the telco's value proposition. Secondly, offering smart hubs can create upsell paths. So, the hub then becomes a platform for tiered services like premium automation and analytics. And it also enables subscription bundles that span multiple verticals like health, wellness, and smart energy, which creates those upsell opportunities. And finally, smart hubs can help telcos defend their strategic position. So owning the hub allows telcos to kind of retain control of the home. And this is critical in the face of, like, for example, hyperscalers or other players who are also trying to position their own devices as the command center of the home. So with smart hubs, telcos can offer their own trusted and open and interoperable alternative, which is kind of rooted in the network. And that would really help them keep the control in the home. So to wrap up, telcos have real strengths that will allow them to play a meaningful role in securing the smart home, but execution really matters, and success ultimately will depend on choosing the right entry strategy and packaging and pricing services to match customer needs specifically, as well as investing in long-term solutions like Smart Hub. So if all that is done right, telcos can truly become the trusted orchestrator of the connected home. Thank you, and I will now hand over to Razvan for the Bitdefender presentation.
Thank you, Gabby. So my presentation is around securing the smart home and how telcos can turn routers into growth platforms. If you can click next. Thank you. A bit of to get organized. The talking points for today are we're going to start talking about what's the difference between the connected home and the smart home. And a bit of spoiler alert, there's no difference. Then we're going to talk about how the connected home is under attack. What's the link between home cybersecurity and physical security? How the router is at the heart of everything and how it can be considered as a business platform for telcos, but also how it can be considered as a security platform for users. And then what are some of the growth strategies for the router and how can we prepare or how can we use the router as a stepping stone to build the future. So let's dive in. Next, please. So if we talk about smart homes, because I've seen in some slides that have been presented today that we talk about smart homes, there's no difference basically between connected home and smart home, but there is a difference in perception because we made some studies, we talked to a lot of users, and 53% of them, they don't think they live in a smart home because the smart home is still something, as a concept, if you think about it, it's still something out of the Jetsons movies. So it's basically a house that knows when you're home or when you're going to get home. A house that talks to you, appliances that know what you want to cook, a house that maybe even turns around to always face the sun. It talks to your car and it opens automatically the garage door and knows if the car is doing okay and so on. That's from the Jetsons. But if you pause a bit and think about each one of these things, minus the rotating house that always faces the sun, which I'm sure there's a very rich individual around that owns something like that. But other than that, most of them, we already have them in our home. So we're surrounded by connected devices that are more or less smart, but in any case are connected to the internet. And the reality shows out of our survey that there are more than 20 connected devices per average in a standard home. 78% of the users own a smart TV or a streaming device. 1 in 2 have a gaming console or a laptop or a computer that they use for gaming. 1 in 3 have a security camera or a smart speaker, and 1 in 5 have smart appliances like smart bulbs, smart plugs, smart thermostats, smart shades, and so on. There's so many devices. I mean, why are there so many devices? Because it's very hard nowadays to buy devices that do not connect to the internet. I recently renovated my apartment, and to my surprise, even my new dishwasher connects to the internet. It's not something that I looked for. I mean, I didn't oppose to it, but I never really intended to have home appliances that connect to the internet. The result is that I bought the standard ones, and they already connect to the internet by default. So if you can click next. This whole ecosystem of devices that we live with, that we're surrounded with, they keep on getting attacked. And don't make the mistake thinking that no hackers are interested in your smart thermostat or your smart coffee maker, because nobody spends time to actually attack your own thermostat. They're just automated attacks. They're pieces of code that go around the internet, and whenever they see an open port, they start looking into it and see what they can find it, and if they can exploit it. This results to more than 10 attacks on every smart home or on every connected home in 24 hours. In the last 5 years, and this is data from last year, the number of IoT-only attacks has grown with 150%. And if you look at the picture on the right, these are all the types of different attacks that can attack your connected home. On the upper left side, there's something called AI scams. We can consider this as the new kid on the block, the new addition. But the truth is that even the old ones, they're still there. So it's not like a type of malware or a type of attack goes out of style and it's not happening anymore. All of them happen, and new types are added all the time. So you can understand how the future is going to look like. Next, please. Now, the link between home cybersecurity and physical cybersecurity is a very thin one, because most of the devices, most of the devices that we use for our physical security, they connect to the internet. We use smart cameras, we use smart locks, we use motion sensors to turn on the lights. So all of these, they still connect to the internet, so they can be exploited and attacked. And our researchers, you constantly find devices that are used for physical security that have vulnerabilities. The same case with devices like smart TVs or smart speakers, that even though they are not used for physical security, they do have webcams and microphones that can be exploited, and they can invade your privacy. So the link between the home cybersecurity and physical cybersecurity is very thin, and they also get they're very, very tightly connected. Next, please. Now, in the middle of all these devices, there's the router, because the router is the heart of everything that's connected. And if you think about it, the telco or the connectivity provider, they really are the backbone of our digital lives. It's them that actually enable our digital twin to live always connected. All these smart devices, they will not be so smart or not smart at all if they would not be connected to the internet. And this put the telcos in a very specific position as the enabler of smartness in our connected homes. Next, please. Now, we can consider the router as a business platform for telcos, so the telcos can become the trusted digital guardians of our digital lives instead of just bandwidth providers. And I think the trend has begun some time ago, and most of the telcos are already making significant steps into this direction. If we look at the data, we see that 85% of the US users, they already connect through fiber of fixed wireless access. 62%, and I think this is very interesting, 62% rely on the router provided by their ISP. And my belief, and we're looking at the data collected last year and 2 years ago, that this percentage is only going to grow, because I've also noticed a trend of telcos and ISPs providing better quality routers, a lot of them already providing mesh routers. So the need for the final consumer to buy an additional router is diminishing. So there's less and less need for a more powerful or a more performant router than the ISP is providing. At the same time, 45% of the users that were interviewed, they think that the ISPs should be responsible for their security. And this falls right into place with something I heard earlier in this webinar. Users really appreciate simplicity and convenience when they choose and enable cybersecurity. Choosing or making the decision to make a step into securing yourself and your family is something that users usually have a strong need for, but making the actual step is actually a bit confusing and scary, because users don't usually understand what to buy and what they need and where to buy it from. So telcos are in this very unique, very good position to simplify this decision and to make their choice as convenient as possible. The willingness to pay per month per household for services bundles that include cybersecurity, parental controls, enhanced features, and so on is about $20. So $20 per month. The users that we interviewed are willing to pay for this case of this type of services. When we talk about use cases for router-based cybersecurity, the biggest use case is for online shopping or banking. Not surprisingly, something that is directly related to the user's money. Then guests' use of the Wi-Fi, smart devices connected to the internet, streaming, the need to protect their kids while they are browsing the internet. And a lot of the users have just said that they want to use it for everything all the time. So the need to be protected is actually present whatever you're doing on the internet. Next, please. From a business perspective, why it makes sense to consider the router as a business platform or as the start of building an ecosystem is because telcos already have the relationship and infrastructure. Their routers are already inside the user's home. Their users are already engaged in a subscription-based relationship with them. So adding services is something that they naturally do, and they do it very well. So they are already in the perfect position to do this. Security enhances brand loyalty and reduces churn, because once my connection is secured and I feel secured I feel secured by my connectivity provider, then it's not just an entity that connects me to the internet. It's also an entity that keeps me safe while living online. So it enhances brand loyalty, and then it reduces the chances of a user to look for an alternative, and it makes them more resistant to small price variations. Security is a sticky service. Cybersecurity brings new revenue, higher retention, and brand differentiation. Is a very scalable product, and it opens up sell opportunities. And we're going to talk about this a bit later about how starting from router-based cybersecurity, telcos can start considering building their own ecosystem to completely protect the digital life of the users. Router-based cybersecurity can be implemented with both older and newer routers, as well as purple or RDKB environments. And this is a very interesting point, at least from my perspective. I've been building this type of agents for quite a number of years now. In the beginning, it was a daunting process to integrate natively these agents in the routers. But I think all of us in this industry have made significant steps forward, and now integrating an agent in the router, even in the older routers, has become a quick and easy process. So yeah, that hurdle is not really a hurdle anymore. And with all this, telcos, they can become providers of trust, curators of services, and really long-term partners for their digital users. Next, please. When we talk about the router as a security platform for the users, we looked at their top expectations, their most wanted features, and perceived benefits. And if we look at top expectations, not surprisingly, in the first place, it's protecting personal information from being stolen. So privacy has become one of the biggest needs of our users in the past years. Then it's stopping hackers from accessing devices, and then it's blocking dangerous websites and downloads. And if you look at these three, they all show that our users need to feel protected when they are online. Then we talk about real-time alerts, spinning up internet by cutting bogus traffic, device checkup, parental controls, and private browsing. Most wanted features, again, not surprisingly, sensitive data protection, closely followed by web protection, and then exploit prevention, vulnerability assessment, and so on. Very interesting is the perceived benefits, which show what our users are actually looking for. And the first one is easy automatic security that works in the background. The second one is peace of mind that you are safe online. And the third one is one solution that protects everything in my home. If you look at this tree, there's two huge aspects that, from our experience, all our users are looking for. One is the need to feel protected, and the second one is a way to achieve this without having to think too much, analyze too much, or making that choice hard or difficult in any way. So the feeling of security plus the convenience of choosing the solution is the winner combination in this case. Next, please. So why it makes sense from a user perspective to opt for a router-based security solution? Because it brings what we were talking about. It brings the peace of mind, convenience, and automatic protection. It can protect devices that cannot be protected by using just by traditional solutions, because you can't really install anything on your smart thermostat or smart TV. It protects physical protection devices like smart cameras, smart door locks, and so on. It offers users both protection and convenience because it doesn't need to be separately installed on all devices. So it's more of a set it and forget it kind of solution. This is a point of discussion because on one hand, you want your solution to be the type of set it and forget it when we talk about enabling the solution. And then it's really down to how do we communicate to our users so we don't have the forget part, because then it's important to be able to always communicate value back to the user. And of course, with the help of AI and with the help of the security partner, it becomes a solution that constantly evolves and detects all the threats automatically. It doesn't need any kind of interaction from the user to make sure that it functions perfectly. Next, please. Now, growth strategies for the router, and I think here we're quite aligned with the slide that Gabi has shown. We see three types of business models. One is focused on differentiation, and it's including the smart home security package, the basic one, for all base, and is promoted as part of the core services. It has higher attach rates, because it's enabled automatically. It introduces router cybersecurity to subscribers. It acts as a competitive differentiator, and it decreases churn because now all subscribers have more value. The other business model is upsell, which is basic smart home security included for all base, plus a premium paid package that includes extra advanced features and functionalities such as VPN, parental controls, and so on. It has medium attach rates because now we need for the upsell the action of the user, but it also reduces churn, and it has a higher ARPU than just the included option. And then the third business model is portfolio up-tiering, which is a hard bundle in the upper part of the portfolio on top of core services. It has lower attach rate, but it has the highest ARPU, and it addresses the tech-savvy customers, and also establishes the network operator as a technology and innovation leader. Next, please. Now, if we think about the future, we can use the router to evolve in a full platform for digital services, because we start from connectivity, which the telcos are already offering. We enhance the router with cybersecurity services. And those network cybersecurity services, what they do besides protecting all the devices is they open up a lot of subjects of dialogue with the customer, which lead to extra services that are promoted at the right time. So the conversion rate is significantly higher. And in the end, it leads to building an ecosystem of cybersecurity solutions so that the user truly is protected and truly feels protected, whether they're at home or on the go, whether they're concerned about their kids or their privacy or their digital footprint and so on. So starting from the agent on the router, we can think about building an entire ecosystem while using the router agent as a first step, and also the user the UX as a single point of communication with the user that keeps on evolving and keeps on bringing new products in the same interface. So next, please. Yeah, so this is why we truly believe that the router is in the right position to be considered a growth engine for a suite of cybersecurity products inside the telco offering, because it can bring protection, satisfaction, churn reduction, revenue, and it's the perfect first step for portfolio evolution. And I think this is my last slide, and I see Marina has already opened her camera.
Well, thank you very much, Razvan.
Thank you.
For this presentation. I think it was really interesting to, first of all, see all the consumer research you have done, which I think has so many interesting points in it, but also to kind of see how you understand and how you see the telco opportunity. Now, for the next 20 minutes, we'll have Gianluca De Maria also join the discussion. And we have some questions prepared kind of on the back of the two presentations, but please do continue to send us your questions. I think we have 3 or 4 questions already. Now would be a great time, and throughout the discussion, to put your questions in the questions part of the interface, and then I'll try to incorporate them in the discussion. But first, let me actually start with Gianluca and ask you, well, Gianluca, you heard the kind of the STL research and then the research that Razvan shared. Can I ask you, from your perspective, from telco's perspective, do you think of the connected home and cybersecurity opportunities together? How do you approach the go-to-market? Do you start with connected home? Do you start with cybersecurity? What's CK Hutchison's approach?
Oh, thank you, Marina, for your question, and all the audience for attending the webinar. At CKH IOD, at Hutchinson Group, with our telco, we lean towards a cybersecurity first approach, because it addresses a clearer and growing consumer concern, as we see, which is digital safety. And we think that once the customer feel protected, they are more open to exploring additional smart home services. That said, we know, we are, let's say, fully aware of the first competition in the smart home space. We know that appliance manufacturer, white good companies, big tech player, like you mentioned, Google, Amazon, the hyperscaler, are rapidly expanding in the smart home footprint. We see also at recent IFA in Berlin that there is a surge of connected device, artificial intelligence enabled device, and all these devices are offering connectivity and smart features. So we know about the competition there is in the smart home space, and we think that cybersecurity is more, let's say, near. It's a vertical that is more near to the connectivity that we are already providing. However, there is also different approach from market to market. So in a more mature market, where the OpCo are trying to expand, where the telco are trying to expand their offering to nearer vertical, like energy, insurance, or physical security. We see also the smart home as something that can be bundled together. For example, insurance with home protection, energy with smart home metering. So it really depends on the marketing and how the market is mature.
And can I ask you, how do you think about the prices? So we heard from Razvan that in the US there's a propensity to pay about $20 per month amongst, kind of on average, amongst consumers for connected home with security. What is your approach to pricing? Do you tend to take this bundled approach? Do you tend to sell cybersecurity and connected home at a premium, or do you go for the freemium model, or is it market by market? How do you think of pricing?
I mean, we know that the bundle model is effective, especially for core service like connectivity and security. I mean, connectivity and security goes quite well together. However, it has some limitation because you cannot bundle everything into a single subscription, no? And as telco are expanding their core offering with value-added services like we say energy, finance, insurance, entertainment, productivity, lifestyle, advanced security, you cannot. However, for sure, you cannot bundle everything together without going into the market with a too expensive bundles. So we think that, for example, there is also the try and buy proposition, and we have seen across multiple operating company and product categories that usually try and buy works quite well, especially if the trial period is short. I mean, few days, maximum 1 or 2 weeks. Because if you offer a try and buy that is too long, like 1 month or more, the customer don't engage immediately with the products, and then so longer trial period tend to underperform because user forget to activate the products or to evaluate the service. So we think that building a core service while offering premium add-ons with a short trial period windows, like few days or 1 or 2 weeks maximum, can drive a stronger adoption and better customer satisfaction.
I think that's great advice, actually, and great kind of observation that you should go for the shorter trial period. Can I ask you both a little bit about whose job do you think it is to educate the consumer about the need for cybersecurity? Because I think a lot of people expect that when they get their connection from the telco, well, it must be secure, right? But then, in fact, we all have to pay extra for our cybersecurity to secure all of our devices at home or and our mobile devices as well. So whose job do you reckon it is to educate consumers for the need for extra security? Do you think it's the telco's job? Do you think it's someone else's job?
It's I mean it should be let's say a shared effort among telco, cybersecurity provider, device manufacturer, regulators, educators. So it should be a shared responsibility. We have seen that. I mean, we are talking about home, so the home concept is near to the family concept, and we have seen in families a growing concern about child protection and parental control. This is a concern that also regulatory bodies, pediatric association, the schools have. And we especially think that for preteens and teens, parents are I wouldn't say scared, but are afraid of what can happen on. I mean, they want their child to be safe online, and they are more concerned about first access to internet and social network with teens and preteens, which is often less supervised and more vulnerable to risk than access to curated digital content for younger kids. And I think that telco can support this effort by offering network or router-based or device-based parental control, educational resource, and proactive alerts, and also helping the parents providing a safe environment for their children. So yeah. I think it's a shared responsibility, but we have a role there for sure.
Of course, yes. And I think when I was listening to Razvan talking about how really the part of the adoption of smart home is driven by the supply, and you didn't ask for a connected washing machine, but you got one because there isn't one that's not connected anymore. Yeah. I wonder whether there's a little bit of a sort of contradiction there with OEMs, so device manufacturers, really pushing that connectivity without necessarily raising the issue that people need to secure those connections, because they don't want to scare the consumer before buying a new device, right? They want the consumer to be excited rather than scared. So I think it is a little bit challenging, isn't it, Razvan?
It is, and I think the way the device manufacturers use the term smart is probably a lot like a lot of people in our industry in software, not only cybersecurity. In software, we started lately using the term AI. This is how you sell. And if you're selling a device, maybe you sell a couple of them, but if you sell a smart device, they will sell much more devices, because now people are attracted because they're smart. Now, the truth about, at least about my dishwasher, is that it's really not that smart. The only thing it does is it tells me through my phone that this washing cycle is completed. That's all it does, but it's advertised as a smart washing machine, so dishwasher, so it's really cool. So you can realize that there is no incentive, or there is no or desire for the device manufacturers to say it is smart, but keep in mind that smartness comes with a lot of vulnerabilities or a lot of exposure, a lot of, and I think our job, maybe as cybersecurity providers, especially in the consumer area, is not only to talk about the threats, but also about how exposed you are without even knowing. Because I've talked to people, and I've been in situations where we were talking about threats, and people said, yeah, we know about that, but we're not exposed to that because we don't have these habits. And the point is, well, most of us, or all of us, are much more exposed than we believe we are, and much more susceptible to fall victims to elaborate scams or to social engineering or to things like this. And I think, so this is why I think education was always a key factor, and now it becomes an even bigger, it gains in importance to have people aware of the threats and of the exposure.
Yeah, and I think the awareness of threats is anyway growing because there are so many high-profile hacks that have happened and kind of cybersecurity events that have happened over the last few months. And I think from that perspective, media exposure really helps people to understand a little bit more than this.
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, what I think really helps when it comes to consumer cybersecurity is not the high-profile hacks, is unfortunately the fact that regular people like you and me started being hacked, and we start to know people among our friends that fell victim to a scam, or something happened with their banking app and things, they started getting WhatsApp messages from people asking for money, and these things happen. And I think this contributes to raising awareness a lot.
Yeah. Maybe it's a great place actually to bring in a question we got from the audience. So there's a question about kind of where the vulnerability comes from. And it's, well, the central telecom control center itself can be at risk of being exploited. So if the telco is providing cybersecurity, it's not only the router that is under threat, but also the telco itself. I guess what we have to say here is that, of course, there are a number of high-profile cybersecurity events recently in telcos, starting with STL Telecom and others. But if a telco can be hacked, then imagine what happens with a smart home and how much threat there is to the smart home. I wonder whether one of you wants to talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah. I think I will talk about it. I wanted to see if Gianluca has anything to say. Well, I think there's two different types of attacks. When a telco is hacked, it means that somebody is paying specific attention to that telco, and they're studying the vulnerabilities, and so it's a different type of let's call it a very intentional attack. Whereas a smart home or a connected home or a regular individual gets hacked or exploited by automated attacks. And you don't even know what's worse, because let's say you say, okay, I'm a regular person, so nobody is really interested in targeting me, which is true. You can get some comfort out of that. But with latest evolution of AI and the fact that virtually everybody without too much technical knowledge can start using their own malware or create their own scams and so on, and popularize them and amplify them, you are now exposed to a much bigger number of let's call them unintentional threats, or not really targeted threats, but you are exposed to them, and so the risk that you're facing is just as big as a telcos.
Yeah. There's an interesting question here, which I think kind of talks about the telco opportunity with routers. So let me ask you, Gianluca, how do you think telcos can compete with companies like Amazon and Google and Samsung and so on, the Apples of this world, for the kind of the central smart home hub in the home? Do you prefer to work with some of these companies as a telco and adopt their router? Do you prefer to go the other route, to the router? And how do you compete if you choose not to go with them? How do you compete with an Amazon or with an Apple or with a Google? who want to control ultimately the smart home? How?
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, maybe it's more about collaboration than competing. For sure, telco is not a device provider. We offer service rather than devices. There have been experience of providing a smart home environment, but it's a very complex job. No, it's not only the device, but it's all the. I mean, it's the smart environment itself that you have to build. We think that we are well positioned in the home of the consumer with the routers, and we have to leverage on that. So, as we say, security is a very adjacent service to connectivity. So to offer connectivity and security is a good start. And then to collaborate with the hyperscaler within the smart home or specific and also to develop specific services within the smart home. No, so we talk about the device, but with the device come security, with energy come smart metering and those kind of services. With insurance, we have I mean, we can protect customer from incident that can happen at the home, but also let's say provide device that help preventing this kind of issues in the home. So I think it's really a small world connected within the home, and we are at the center of this small world connected via the router.
And
from
I guess we have.
There we can start. Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to say, I think we have time for only one question, and I want to ask one which seems to have been asked by two different people, so it must be a question of interest, and that is, do you see any difference between consumer and small and medium enterprise customers when it comes to using the router and security for the router? Could there be a different approach to two segments, or do you think of them kind of what you do for the consumers, can it be translated for small and medium enterprises as well as a proposition?
I mean, we think also our OpCo operating company think that consumer and small and medium business are have similar needs. I mean, enterprise are something quite different, but small and medium business can have same needs of consumer. In fact, usually I would say that the marketing team of small and medium business within the organization can be under consumer or under enterprise. It really can happen both, and can also vary during time. So yeah, I think that they are adjacencies. There are quite similar needs. It depends on the dimension of the small company for sure. And yeah, I mean, maybe consumer can be more focused on parental controls, while small medium enterprise not, but there are some similarities.
Maybe Razvan, a few words on that question if you want to.
No, I mean, I totally agree with Gianluca. And from a cybersecurity perspective, we also think that at least when you talk about small businesses, I don't know medium. If medium is also 200 or 400 employees, then no. But for sure, small businesses, they have the same needs as a consumer. And I think one of the key differentiators between small businesses and larger businesses where the needs change is the small businesses, they don't have anyone in their organization that does cybersecurity. So from this perspective, it's more like a family. Nobody really has this job, but somebody has to secure the entire small business. So from an approach perspective, it's really quite similar. As Gianluca said, maybe the family will be focused more on parental controls, but then the small business maybe will need some different ways of adding users. But from a cybersecurity perspective, it's still quite the same.
Yeah, and I have to say our research says exactly the same, that the small and medium business is not a bucket of businesses. Actually, there is some segmentation there, and the micro businesses very much behave like consumers, but then as they grow, they have their separate needs, and you need different propositions.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can spend another hour discussing, but I think we've come to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much, Gianluca, Razvan, for taking the time to share with our participants your wisdom and experience. We have received other questions that we haven't responded to. We will prepare a question and answer document and we'll share with the participants. So if you have sent us a question, it won't be ignored, be assured. Thank you very much for joining today. Hopefully you enjoyed the webinar and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, Gianluca. Bye.
Thank you all.